This is a video in the series of videos that describes how to specify the composition of units. And in this video, we're going to look at how to attach platform models to a unit. And we're going to talk about the important role that platform models play in the life of a unit and in flame scenarios. And there are some other models that are usually associated with platform models, in particular icon models and signature models. So we're going to talk about those at the same time. So this is the first video we actually talk about the specifics of attaching a model, and the things that we're going to learn in this video are going to apply as we attach other types of models as well, because the process of attaching a model to a unit is pretty much the same regardless of the type of model that we're attaching. So first, let's go take a look at the platform meta objects that we have loaded in this particular scenario. So the scenario I have loaded is the scenario I created in the preceding video. It's the composition tutorial. And as you should know from that preceding video, this is just a copy of the example scenario called tutorial no units. So it has no units in it. And in the previous video, I set up a untitled unit data set. But I haven't actually saved this data set yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And because it's a new data set, it gave it a default name of untitled. So I'm going to call this the same as the name of the scenario, composition tutorial units. And then because I've create a new data set in my scenario, I need to save the scenario data set itself in order so that the scenario data set includes this particular unit data set as a part of the scenario. So I just hit save there, and so it's been saved. So now let's go take a look at the platform meta objects. In fact, before I look at platform meta objects, let's just look at all the data sets that are loaded in this scenario. This is what got loaded when we loaded the tutorial no units scenario, and it has all the same data sets that came from the tutorial single shooter data set, except the unit data set, and for that we have a blank unit data set that we just created. So when I load, there's a bunch of data already loaded in this scenario, but we're not using most of it yet. So we're going to go take a look at the platform data set and what's inside of that. So I'll go over here to parameters, equipment, platforms, and I only have two platform meta objects. And in this particular DLL, the tutorial DLL, there's only one platform class. It's the FEX ground vehicle. So in the tutorial models, all the classes are, or most of the classes are named FEX. That's just abbreviation for Flames example. And there's a ground vehicle class in there. This ground vehicle is very simple. All it can really do is be located, and it can move, off-road, so it can move to waypoints, and it can move in formation as well, lead a formation and move in formation. So I have two meta objects created that are each instances of this ground vehicle class. I have a light truck and I have a red truck. So I've got a blue truck and a red truck. So the blue is the friendly guy, and the blue guy, and the red is the enemy guy. So every platform class has these set of attributes, input parameters specified at the top. These attributes come from the Flames platform class. So every platform, you can specify the team. You can specify the icon, the 2D and the 3D icon. So the icon is how this thing is going to be drawn in the 2D window, and the 3D icon is how it's going to be drawn in the 3D window. And then you can also specify signatures. And we're going to talk more about each of these things in just a moment. And then down below these set of parameters, again, you'll see these at the top of every platform class. There'll be the parameters that are specific to the class. So the only input parameter that this particular class has is max speed. So if you go look at the platform classes, and there are several of them in the starter models, you'll see that they have several more input parameters here because they're much more complicated than this particular model. So we're going to talk about these parameters a little bit more, but I'm going to push through and actually create a unit and attach an instance of one of these platform meta objects to the unit. So we're going to go do that first. So I'm going to go back to my unit data set, which right now has no units in it. And I'm going to call this blue shooter, because we're going to build up the blue shooter. And then I'm going to go to the script tab. Let me spend just a few minutes telling you about script. The script is the actual real input for the definition of a unit. So when you're looking at the commands, all you're really getting is a graphical representation, a very friendly, easy to edit interface over the top of the script. But this is, in fact, the commands are just a graphical representation of the script. The actual real input for the unit is specified in text in the script. And you'll understand as you get more familiar with Flames why it is that we specify the definition of a unit using script. It is extremely powerful. It gives us the foundation for a lot of the really cool capabilities that Flames has. It's not just left over because we started with it that way. If we were going to start Flames all over again and build it from scratch, we would absolutely let the inputs for units be specified with script. It is such a powerful way to go. A typical user doesn't ever have to edit script. Everything is done through graphical user interface, through the creating units with patterns and then entering commands. And so a typical user or a more basic user never has to use script. But if you're going to specify the composition of a unit, you have to use script. There's reasons why we always specify the composition through script. So we're going to have to learn about script. Script is very simple language. It's not a procedural language in the sense that it has complicated control structures and logic structures. It's really just an input specification language. It's a way of specifying inputs for a unit. There aren't very many statements. There's really only about half a dozen statements that you'll use regularly. And again, you're only going to use these statements if you're an advanced user. And you don't really have to remember what those statements are. You'll get, because the keywords for the statements are right here in this little insert dropdown. So employ is one of the most common statements that you'll use. In fact, these three are the most common statements that you'll use: employ, include, and admonition. And so that's why they're up here at the top. The employ statement is the statement that you use to attach most types of models to a unit. The only model that's not attached with an employ statement is the admonition statement, but all the other models are attached with employ. So if I click employ right here, it just pastes the employ keyword in. Of course, I could type that in manually, but it's easier just to do it this way. And then this next set of entries in this drop-down menu are the different types of models. So there's 8 different types of there's actually eight different types of models that can be attached to a unit directly. There's actually a 9th type of model called subsystem, but that does not get attached directly. That's always attached to other models, and we'll talk about those later. So we're going to attach a platform. So employ platform. So after the word employ is always what overall primary class of model you're going to be attaching. And then we need to type in the name of the meta object that we want to attach. So we can go to the platforms window and we could take one of these meta objects and copy its name and paste it in, but we don't have to do that. Whenever your cursor is on an employee platform statement, you can use this little button right here, which is the insert entity name. In this case, the entity is a name of a meta object, and it will pull up all of the entities that are appropriate to be inserted for that particular statement. So you can see here's our two meta objects, platform meta objects. I'm just going to double click on this name right here. So it pastes that name in and it encloses it in quotes. If a meta object name does not have any spaces or special characters, the name does not need to be enclosed in quotes, but this insert entity name button always encloses it in quotes just in case the name has spaces in it, and this one does, so it's a good thing it's in quotes. Otherwise it wouldn't compile right, and I'll put a semicolon behind it, and then I can hit accept. And accept, just like any other accept button in Flames, it will first configure the particular object that you're modifying, and then it will go and reconfigure the entire scenario. And we've already talked about scenario configuration in an earlier video, so I'm not going to go back over that. But you'll see that after I accept this one statement, I go back to my composition tab, and there it is. That shows me that I've got the blue light truck attached to this model. And as we've talked about in other videos, it's not the actual, this blue light truck that's in the platforms window. It's actually a copy of that. So this is a meta object, and this meta object is never, this particular real instance of this class, this object, is not ever used directly on a unit. As a meta object, it's used only as a template or a pattern that is intended to be cloned, and it's that clone, that copy, that is attached to the unit. So the unit has a unique instance of this object attached to it. It's unique to this unit, but it is an exact copy of the meta object. So I can double click on this if I ever want to go take a look at it, and we looked at that before. I can also, in the script, if I click anywhere on an employee statement, a completed employee statement, I can use this button right here, and that will go to that meta object as well. So there's two different ways to get to that meta object if you want to actually change the parameters. And as we've talked about before, if we change the parameters here and hit accept, the whole scenario gets reconfigured, and all the units that employ this platform that will get a new copy of it, so that this change will be propagated to every unit in the scenario that uses this particular platform. So I've got the platform attached. And the process that I just went through for employing this platform is the same for almost every other type of model. So we just had an introduction here to how to attach models to units. You use the employee statement, you specify the particular type of overall primary class of model, you specify its name, and that's it. Now, before I go on and talk more about the platform class itself, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what happens if you put in a syntax error. So perform with a D at the end is not a legitimate keyword, so that's a syntax error. So if I hit accept, it's going to give me a error message and tell me usually which line it's on. And it says, you're supposed to be specifying a type of model here, and there is no such type of model named Platform D. So it's going to say this is wrong. And it's only a warning. If you have a script syntax error, it's only a warning. So that allows the unit to actually get created. If it was an error, and in fact there are some things that are errors, errors would prevent the unit from being created, any of the script being processed for the unit. And so you would get a blank unit because it would ignore all the script because the compilation of the script failed. So if I say okay, because it's just a warning, I don't have an option to say I don't want to accept it. It's going to go reconfigure the entire scenario, as you now know from a configuration. So this error message is going to show up over here as well. So you saw it when it first got configured, and then this individual object got configured, and then you see the error message here when the unit is reconfigured as a part of the overall configuration of the scenario. And as you already know, if I click somewhere on, I don't have to highlight, but if I click somewhere on this warning statement or error statement, I can use, I'm going to close this window just for the heck of it. go over here and click and use this button right here, it will take me to the entity that is generating this error. So it opens up the window and takes me right here. So that's true for any entity configuration error or warning in the status window. So because that statement didn't compile successfully, it couldn't be executed, so I don't have a platform attached. So I can go back to the script and I can fix this, and I'll hit accept. So that's all I'm going to talk about in this video. It's just a basic approach to how you employ things, and I'm going to wait until the next video to get into the details of platform objects and how they work and what they do. So I look forward to talking to you in the next video where we talk more about platform models. Thank you for watching, and thank you for using Flames.